So when you are going to classify your data set, it will be a group data. And when you do not classify your data set, ungroup data set. So just do remember about the scales. We have a nominal scale, we have an ordinal scale. And nominal and ordinal data set, they are handled differently. So we name them as the categorical data sets. And then we have a continuous scales. One is the interval scale, and another one is the ratio scale. So we're going to start with the continuous data, ungroup frequency. So just look at this data set, and we need to represent data set in a table without grouping it. So I'm using an example. The following data represents the weight of 21 clients in a nutrition consulting clinic. So these are the weights of all people. When it comes to the body weight, that data set is measured on ratio scale, because data is continuous and there is an equal distance between two units. It can take any value and the zero is true. You cannot go to negative value. And when I was going to construct an ungrouped frequency distribution for this data set with 12 points, weight 80, 76, 90, 70, 60, 62, 63, when I was going to present it, first step is always to tally it and then decide about the frequency. How many points are there in a specific body weight? So first is the 80. And in that case, in tally method, what you need to do, that you just need to mark all those possible body weights. So one was the 60, 62, 63, 70, 76, 80, and 90. In the next step, you just need to sort all those body weights into the ascending order. And then in the next column, you have a tally column where you just need to draw a number of lines. So now once you have that mark and the tally table, and now you just need to read all that. First one is 80. So I will going to draw a line at 80. One single line. That means I have a single observation at 80. And then second one is 76. So I have to line at 76. In that case, you just need to draw those lines, and at the end of your data set, what you're going to get is that now you have a frequency distribution of ungrouped data. That here you will going to see that at 60 kilogram body weight, you have two frequencies. We find the frequency as the number of observations that fall in a specific category. So at 60, we have 2, 62, 1, 63, 2, 73, 76, 2, 81, and 91. And you can verify all that data set later on after the class, once I will going to give you the PowerPoint presentation. So that's one way, ungrouped frequency distribution. You have to mark every possible point in the data set. There is no class, there is no sub, so it's only the points and their frequencies. That's an example of ungrouped frequency distribution. But most of the time, as I told you, that I managed to have that table because I have only 12 observations, and a lot of observations they were on a specific, say, let's suppose 70 at body weight of 70, I have 3 observations. At 76, I have 2 observations, and at 60, I have 2 observations. And my total number of observations were 12. So that was possible with that data set. But let's suppose if I have 100 observations and I want to mark it ungrouped frequency distribution. In that case, my table might be many pages long, and that's hardly readable as well as comparable for any audience. So when you have a larger data set, it's always recommended, it's always suggested to just classify that data set. And when you will going to classify your data set into classes and subclasses, that will be a group data. And even when you look at the problem here, it is written that when the range of data is large, in that case, it's a compulsion for you to group your data set into the classes and subclasses so that it will be comparable and readable to your reader. So as I have limited, so I will use an example, construct a frequency data set. Maybe these are also the body weights, or it can be anything. Once again, data is continuous. They are measured on ratio scale. When you have, I have first observation as 11, 29, 6, 33, 14, 31, 22, 27, 19, 20, 18, blah, 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 and ultimately I have the last observation as 2. So at any time, when I need to classify my data set, in order to make classes, first I need to sort my data set into the ascending order. So in this data set, my lowest observation is 2. While my highest observation is 39. So the range of my data set is between 2 to 39. In order to do this, first I have to make my classes. When it comes to how many classes you want to make, that's the discretion of that. How many classes do you want to have? That suits you. In this data set 2, 4, 6, you have 6 classes. So normally it's always recommended that your classes must not be more than 10. Because once you have more than 10 classes in any data set, what will going to happen that it will going to occupy lots and lots of space. So it's all up to you how many classes you are interested in. So there's no fixed rule. So it's the responsibility of the researcher. But as a biologist, what I will going to recommend you is to classify your data into classes that have some biological explanation. What do I mean by this? That let's suppose, considering the same example of your age groups, when some social science, they will going to classify the data set, they will classify the age groups like this, 0 to 4, and then they will going to classify another thing as 4 to 6 preschool and 6 to 10 school going, and then 10 to 12 pre-adolescent, 12 to 15 adolescent, and then 15 and to 35 that will be adults, and from 35 to 50 middle adulthood, and then from 50 onward they will going to declare it as late adulthood. That's their classification. But when it comes to the biology, I will recommend you to have only one group, that is anything that is less than 4-year infants, and then you have another class that is 4 to 12 simple, and 12 to 15 it's an adolescent group, and from 15 to onward you have an adult group. And we know that at every stage we have some physiological changes and we have physiological justification, and that will going to solve our problem, that will facilitate to give argument to our research. So as far as the number of classes are concerned, it's the discretion of a researcher. So you can, so here in this data set, they have classified the data set, their data range was between from 2 to 39. There is one mistake in this data set. The classes must need to start from less than 2. So they started from 6 to 11. No, it's not 6 to 11. It must be from the first class must be from 2 to 6 or 1 to 5. So it can be any 0.5. So they have classified like this. If you ignore only one observation, that is your problem. Make that 2 as 12, and then your problem will be solved. So here I have data set like this. So here from once I will going to miss that 2, my data set, my lowest observation will be 6, and my highest observation will be 39. So look at this data set. Now they have classes. So they have made a first class 6 to 11, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So they have 5 units in one class. And the second class is between 12 to 17. The third class is between 18 to 23. Once again, there should be an equal distance between two classes. And then you have 24 to 29, 30 to 35, and 35 to onward. They do not keep the equal distance. Once again, it must be something else. It must be, the last one should be 36 to 41. It can. I'm using an example of online data set. Okay, let me do. So it cannot be 35, it must be 30. So it will be 36 to 41. First condition, when you need to classify your data set, your number of units in every class should be same. So between 6 to 11, you have 5 units. Between 12 to 17, you have 5 units. Between 18 to 23, you have 5 units. And between 24 to 25 units. And between 30 to 35, 5 units. And 36 to 41, it's once again 5 units. Secondly, the classes should be mutually exclusive. What do I mean by this? That let's suppose if this 11 falls in the upper class, it should not be a part of any other class. So all those units that are in class, they cannot be on any other class. So if there will be an overlap, like the error made here, that the last class was 35 and there once again 35, they mentioned the 35 in the next section as well. So in that case, if you have an observation that is exactly 35, where you are going to place it, that will create a problem. So should be mutually exclusive. And secondly, overall should be inclusive. What do I mean by inclusive? It has need to accommodate every observation in data set. For example, if my highest observation would be 42, overall the classes, they are not inclusive because the 42 observation falls in none of my classes. So they must be mutually exclusive, but overall they must need to put each and every one from the data set. So once you have decided for your classes, the next step is to establish class boundaries. From the class boundaries, you normally make the decision. How I will going to, what's the significance of class boundaries is that just look at here. Here you have an observation that is 11 and your next class starts at 12. And if I will ask you that if, let's suppose in your data set, if you have an observation like 11.4, where you will going to place that observation? Either in the first class or second class. That creates a problem. So what you do, that when your data set do not have any digits, when your data set do not have any fractions like 5.5, 11.5, 11.4, 11.6, in that case, you just make class boundaries by increasing the precision by 1 unit. So as my body weights, there are no points there. 11, 29, 6, 33, 14, 31, 22, 27, 20, 18, 17, 22, 20, 38, 23, 21, 26, 34, 39, 12. In that case, there are no points. There is no observation like 12.4, 12.6. So when I will going to make all my class boundaries, what I will going to do, that I will increase the precision by 1 unit. So I will going to add points to this. So as my class boundary, the class starts at 6. So I will make my class boundary 5 points at 5.5. And then as my class finishes at 11, so I will make my class boundaries as 11.5. And then I will going to start my next class exactly from the same digit. So my next class boundary will be identical. So it will start at 11.5 and then it will finish at 17.5. And once again, you will going to see exactly identical both of them. And the data continues and so on. Once you have made those class boundaries where you increase the precision by 1 unit and you declare the boundary of any class, in the next step you have to decide. As you can see, the upper class boundary of the lower class is exactly identical to the lower class boundary of the next class. So once again, it's a decision of a researcher whether they want to include that point into the upper class or boundary or lower class. So let's suppose if you have an observation that is exactly 11.5. So now it's your responsibility to decide whether you want to place 11.5 and upper class boundary or whether you are going to place it as follow the rule of lower class boundary. So it's discretion. You can choose anyone. But once you have made your choice, you have to stay consistent throughout your data set. And then next step is the midpoint. What's the midpoint of every class? So in order to calculate the midpoint, you just need to add the lower class boundary and upper class boundary and then divide it by 2. So it will be 8.5. So what you need to do in order to decide about the midpoint? So you just need to add 5.5 with 5. I'm poor using the mouse. So 5.5 plus 11.5 divided by 2. That will be equal to 17 divided by 2. Ultimately, at the end, I am going to get a value of 8. So that's the midpoint of every class. So you need to repeat the same procedure. 11.5 plus 17.5, it will be 29. And then when you are going to divide it by 2, it will be 14 points. So that will be the midpoint of your second class. And then you have a midpoint of your third class. And then you have midpoint of your fourth class, fifth class, and sixth class. That's how we decide about the midpoints. And then in the next step, what you need to do, that you just need to look for the frequency in every class. And that frequency could be calculated through tally method as well. So when you look at between 6 to 11, just look in this data set. So it's 11, 1, and then 2. Other than these two observations, one observation is this one and the second one is this. So these two observations in your entire data set, they will going to fall in the first class. And that relate to the frequency of first class. And then you will go back and then you need to decide about the second. In your second class, it's between 12 to 17. So what you need to do, look here and look if you have any observations like 12, that is between 12 to 17. So one is the 14, and the next observation observation is somewhere that is 17. Please ignore this because I made that 12. So in that case, I have 2 observations here. So that will be 2. And then we are going to proceed from 18 to 23. So once again, you have to search all those values that are between 18 to 23. Let me switch my ink. So that will be between 18 to 23. So that here I have 22, 1. And then I have another observation as 19, another observation between 20. So these all 3 will be, and then I have observation as 18, 2, 3. Maybe I have another observation 22, another observation as 23, another observation as 21. So there 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So in total, I have these 7 observations. So that will be the frequency of my 3rd class. And in this way, you need to proceed with the frequencies when you're going to do that. So in the next, you have 4, and I will not going to repeat it. And then you have in the second last class, you have 3, and the last class you have. So once you have frequencies, then the next step is to calculate the cumulative frequency. So this is cumulative frequency. So let me spell this. COMM ULATIV. That's cumulative. Added frequencies. So we define the cumulative frequency as is the sum of frequencies from the lowest point of your data set. So if you add from the lowest point of your data set to a specific point, that will be the cumulative frequency. So in the first class, your cumulative frequency will be exactly identical to the frequency of first class. So that will be in the case of second class, you just need to add these 2 frequencies. So 2 plus 2, that will be 4. So your cumulative frequency will be 4. When you will add 4 to 7, that will be 11. And when you add 11 to 4, will be 15. And when you add 3 to 15, that will be 18. And then when you will add 18 to 2, it will be 20. So the cumulative frequency of your last class is equal to the total number of observations in your data set. And cumulative frequency of first class is equal to the frequency of its original class. So when you have the cumulative frequency, see from lower side, you can also have the cumulative frequency from the higher side. So it will start from 20 and then it will move on, switch on in reverse order. So total number of observations are 20, and then you just need to subtract everything, and then you will go and keep on getting. And at the end of the day, you have situation like this. So you can just simply ignore this table. You do not need to do anything with that table because you do not. So that's how we just make a frequency distribution of a group data. There you classify your data set, establish class boundaries, decided about the midpoint, decided about the frequencies, and then you decide about the cumulative frequency. Accept my apology for poor internet speed, and maybe there was lots and lots of distortion in my voice. So accept my apologies. If you have any question, you can ask, and then it's a call, class dismissed. Do you have any question? You have 2 minutes to ask any question. If you have any question, you can ask, and then it will be class dismissed. Any volunteer? What fraction of my lecture was clear? Yes.
Sir, can you repeat class boundary?